Hey there people, I'm the Cinephile, and today we're going to look at two movies. That's right, dos películas. We're going to be looking at The Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Man. It's a review I've wanted to do since I started this show, so let's get right to it. Right away, I'm going to explain that both of these are two of my favorite superhero movies ever. They both were entertaining, engaging, exciting, and both were received well by critics and audience alike. But ever since The Amazing Spider-Man was released just a year ago, everyone's been in this big debate on which Spider-Man movie is better, Sam Raimi's version or Mark Webb's version. So today I'm gonna state my opinion since everybody else is doing it. Which one do I like, The Amazing Spider-Man or Spider-Man? The best way to start this off is to look at Spider-Man, or Peter Parker himself. The first movie was played by Tobey Maguire. He is smart, nice, gets a temper when needed, but all around is a mature guy trying to fit Spider-Man into his life. In the reboot, he is played by Andrew Garfield. He is smart, nice, gets a temper when needed, but is an all-around mature guy trying to fit Spider-Man into his life. Or is he? In the reboot, Peter Parker is portrayed very young. In the original, he is in high school for half the movie, then graduates, but you never got the feeling that he is a high schooler. In the reboot, he doesn't even graduate. He's in high school the whole time, and the movie shows a shorter span of time, maybe about a month or two. So, which Spider-Man do I like a lot better? Well, I like the new one. A younger portrayal of Spider-Man was a smart move. While he is a good guy, he does make sense. He acts like a teenager, and it makes for better change over time as he grows into being Spider-Man. The fights seem real, the sadness seems real. I don't hate the original Spider-Man, I grew up with that one, and there is still a lot to like about Tobey Maguire's performance. But really, I'd rather see someone who actually acts like a teenager, not someone who is overly nice and makes only one mistake in his whole life. Now I know the third movie starts to show his darker side, but really, if he was going to have this sudden dark turn, shouldn't there have been signs early on of this happening? Andrew Garfield, you're the Spider-Man I always pictured when I was a child. But what about the leading lady? There's Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane Watson in the original, and the reboot has Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy. Now this one is easy to pick who I think was better. It's Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy. Why? Well, Kirsten Dunst did a fine job as Mary Jane. Her character was just dumb. All she did was needed saving like 3 times. She has her dreams and she fights for them, and there is a lot to her character that's quite interesting. She falls in love with Spider-Man, but every second she's around Peter, you can tell Mary Jane totally wants him, and that whole relationship never made any sense to me. So Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy, on the other hand, not only doesn't need saving, but she helps Peter out. Finally! A well-written girl character! Another thing I like about this movie is that it shows the two leading characters as sort of friends at first. But over time, they do fall for each other. But not with awkward love talk like in the original. Peter is still nervous, but it is shown in a more normal manner. And these two have such great chemistry. It's hard to watch these two fall for each other when you know what happens to Gwen in the comics. But that makes for good story in the coming sequels. Duh! Pre-planning! Who's ever heard of that? Mark Webb directed 500 Days of Summer, so maybe he just knows how to film a good romance. I like this relationship. But then there's the other characters, Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Well, you're gonna think I'm nuts, but even though the reboot shows them as more realistic, I still like the originals. Yeah, I know, I've liked the reboot's realistic characters, but the original is just what I've always pictured as Aunt May and Uncle Ben. They seem like they were one-time teenagers like Peter, but over time learned to be smart and calm parents. Other characters? Well, there are very minor characters that made big changes for me. For instance, Flash in the original is shown to hate on Peter for no reason. In fact, the whole school kind of makes fun of Peter. But it seems like it's on no one else but Peter. It's like Peter's the only person to make fun of in school. It's like, are there any other people to make fun of? Well, the reboot, while Peter is still picked on by Flash, it isn't 24/7. Flash does pick on other people. The school doesn't hate Peter, people talk to him. And Flash is shown to be nice when he needs to be, so he isn't just a one-dimensional bully. Thank you, movie god, for creating multi-dimensional characters! The one disappointment in the reboot is the fact that they don't have J. Jonah Jameson. The original is played by J.K. Simmons, definitely one of the most memorable performances in the movie. In fact, some people just want J.K. Simmons to play the same character in the reboot sequel, which I am all hands for. So on a whole, I mostly like the characters from the new movie, besides Aunt May and Uncle Ben. But now it's time for the next series of characters, villains! Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn, who becomes the Green Goblin, and Rhys Ifans something, as Kirk Connors, who becomes a Lizard. Both actors do terrific jobs as their regular egos, but it's their alter egos that, well, to be honest, neither of them really got that great. I always thought the Green Goblin was menacing, but kind of silly, almost like a crack addict attacking the city. But the Lizard seems even more silly. It's just hard to pull that kind of character off on the big screen, but honestly, he just kind of bored me. It didn't ruin the movie by any means, but like I said, at least the regular egos give some more depth. But on that note, the motivation is kind of dumb too. They simply get drugged, which causes them to go insane. So, pretty much anything at Oscorp don't use, because their liquids will make you go nuts.
Yeah, well, I drank one of those Oscorp things and now I got a tail!
Spider-Man 2 has a good villain, but we're not here to talk about that. I guess The Amazing Spider-Man 2 has a chance of making a great villain. Let's see what you got, Jamie Foxx. Now what's to talk about? Well, there's the story. Both are pretty good origin stories. But there are certain things in both that make no sense. Like, why did Peter just suddenly become Spider-Man in the original? Just because his uncle said to have responsibility? The reboot actually shows his transitioning from wanting revenge to taking responsibility as a hero. But then there is also when Uncle Ben dies. The original has them having a conversation in the car, they get in a fight, and Uncle Ben is shot later. But in the reboot, Peter leaves the house after a fight, Uncle Ben goes to find him, and then he gets shot. Now in both movies, Peter mistakenly helps the burglar, who eventually kills Uncle Ben. But I gotta hand it to the reboot. Peter doesn't even get a final word with Uncle Ben, he just gets a voicemail from him. Peter almost gets double the blame. Uncle Ben only left the house because of Peter, and the burglar shot Ben only because Peter couldn't stop him. Obviously, it's not Peter's fault, but lots of pressure is put on him to make him upset. How about the fact that Peter reveals he is Spider-Man to Gwen Stacy rather than hiding it and making dumb excuses to why he is always missing out on things? How about the fact that Spider-Man is actually very vulnerable, unlike the original where he only gets hurt during the final fight? How about the fact that Aunt May sees how beat up Peter is? How about the fact that since Spider-Man told Gwen Stacy that he's Spider-Man, there's probably going to be some consequences down the road which will lead to the sequel, which, once again, good use of planning for the future plot. Oh my gosh, the reboot has an awesome story. Not only is it relatable, but it also makes sense. You can argue that the reason Amazing Spider-Man has a lot of these small, better changes was because they were learning from the original's mistake. But isn't that what a reboot is supposed to do? I also hate when people call it a remake of the original. No, it's not. In fact, the Amazing Spider-Man, if anything, is trying to be more like the comics, which the original only did a little bit of. Plus, the original always seemed very off to me. The sequels are pretty solid, but the original seems sort of choppy, quickly made. The effects aren't that great. Sam Raimi, I know you were trying, but it's obvious the studio was trying to push this movie out due to the success of the X-Men. Now, that's not to say that The Amazing Spider-Man wasn't pushed out. It definitely was. But maybe they just put the extra effort into it. Maybe the effects were just ready at that point. But of course, the reboot could age just as bad as the original. I guess we could check it out in 10 years and see if those effects are still holding up. So, if I like the new one so much, why is it that it wasn't as praised as the original? Well, like I already said, it was pushed out quickly, especially since it's rebooting the franchise that only started 10 years earlier, and the last film was only 5 years ago. Critics didn't see a point in the origin story. True. But to me, it just worked and exceeded my expectations. I really thought this movie was gonna suck. I thought it was pointless. The only real reason I saw it was out of curiosity. And then I found out I needed this movie. There's also the fact that when people saw the original Spider-Man, it was super amazing. I remember seeing it in theaters. I had never seen anything like it. But that was at a point when superhero movies consisted of, well, pretty much Superman, Batman, and X-Men. So there wasn't much to exceed. Now we have many superhero movies a year, ranging from dark and realistic to witty and humorous. So when The Amazing Spider-Man came out, there was a lot to compete against if it wanted to stand out. And to be honest, the storyline is very similar to Batman Begins. Yeah, I know that both movies follow the hero's journey very precisely, but just go watch Batman Begins and you'll see the similarities to The Amazing Spider-Man. And actually, if you watch The Amazing Spider-Man and how everything was set up, you could pretty much see how the sequel is going to be completely ripping off The Dark Knight. I really hope The Amazing Spider-Man doesn't just completely rip off the Dark Knight trilogy's storyline, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So why did I like this movie so much when it ripped off another storyline completely? Well, first of all, there's the fact that you can rip off a storyline and still bring something new to the table and actually invent it and try to change it and try to like improve it, you know. And I know I'm a minority here, but I actually like The Amazing Spider-Man a lot better than Batman Begins. You know, in fact, I'll go as far as saying as the Batman Begins is kind of overrated. In fact, I don't get why people say they like the beginning and they don't like the ending, when it's the complete opposite for me. I don't like the beginning. The part in China, what is that? When I was a kid, being Spider-Man was a dream of mine. When I got older, of course those childish feelings went away, because you can't be Spider-Man. But this scene in The Amazing Spider-Man changed everything. A lot of people complained about this scene, and come on guys, they had this kind of scene in Spider-Man.
You mess with New York! You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us!
This scene shows the vulnerability of Spider-Man, but he doesn't give up. Look at the shots, and look at the effects, and the music. The music was composed by James Horner, and I gotta say, I love this uppity, adventurous tune. It's memorable, but it isn't dark. It matches what this movie is. But then again, Spider-Man's music, composed by Danny Elfman, is also memorable and pretty good. And this may be weird to point out, but as a kid, I always pictured a superhero being a teenager and then having, you know, the villain coming and attacking the school while he's at school. I always wanted to see a scene like that, but then I thought, no way, it's impossible, because all heroes are older than being a teenager. But this movie actually succeeds in making a scene like that, and it's actually a pretty good scene. I am pumped for the sequel. Next summer, 2014, summer of 2014, I'm gonna see it. I'm gonna see it opening weekend. Man, it's gonna be awesome. So if you've boycotted the reboot and just didn't want to watch it because, oh my god, they made it too quick, please give it a chance. Really, Cinephile? You review not only one superhero movie, but two? That makes three now. 3 superhero movies that you reviewed that aren't my movie. Actually, it's only 2. Anchorman wasn't a superhero. Why won't you review my movie? Why? Alright. I'll be quite clear. I don't think you have a movie. Of course you don't think I have a movie. You only pay attention to those big, popular flicks. You would never look at a movie like mine. You know what? I'm just gonna go. I'm sorry. All I do is hurt him.
Do I look like I care? Jesus, man, why do you always make me stand on this shelf all day? So you can tell me your problems? Seriously, I'm here against my will. What else do you want?
Maybe I should try to find Iron Man the movie. It might exist. Someone will review my movie. Someone will. I will make the Cinephile review it. But how?
Perhaps I can help.
Who are you?
I am the untastable, unreachable, unbelievable evil cinephile.
How do you want to help me?
Ha! We will not only get him to review your movie, but we will make him pay for trying to kill me, causing me to lose my sword, and tricking me into thinking he burned his book.
Huh?
You will get a reviewed movie, then we will kill him!
Killing really isn't my thing.
Do you want your movie reviewed or not?
Fine, let's kill him. Oh, yeah.
Darth, are you ready?
Ready when you are, my master. I'll tell you when to strike.